The silence that shocked everyone. Nobody expected Billy Gibbons to go quiet. For decades, he was the loudest guy in the room, with his guitar, his beard, and his attitude. But then, one day, around his 75th birthday, fans noticed something strange. Billy wasn't posting much. No wild interviews. No surprise guitar solos on social media. No ZZ Top tour announcements. Just silence. And in the ZZ Top world, silence is loud. Fans started whispering online. Is Billy retiring? Did something happen behind the scenes? The rumors got louder every day. Some said it was health issues. Others believed the band had finally broken apart after decades of keeping it together through deaths, drama, and wild tours. Then, out of nowhere, Billy Gibbons broke his silence, and what he said shocked everyone. But before we get to his message, let's rewind. Because to really understand why what Billy said mattered so much, you need to understand the hidden story of ZZ Top. The part they never wanted fans to see. It all goes back to a moment in 2021 that hit the band like a hammer, the death of Dusty Hill. For over 50 years, Billy and Dusty had stood side by side. Matching hats. Matching beards. Matching attitude. They weren't just bandmates. They were brothers in rock. But when Dusty passed away suddenly, everything changed. ZZ Top didn't stop. They kept playing. Dusty had reportedly told them, the show must go on. So they brought in Elwood Francis, their longtime tech, to play bass. And to many fans, it looked like ZZ Top was still rolling strong. But behind the scenes, Billy was carrying a pain no one saw. He wasn't just losing a bandmate, he was losing a part of himself. And when the cameras weren't on, the guitars were quiet, and the fans had gone home, Billy was left with a question he couldn't escape. Is ZZ Top still ZZ Top, without Dusty? That question haunted him, and fans didn't know he had been struggling with it ever since. Now, fast forward to his 75th birthday. Instead of throwing a party, Billy posted a message. Just a short video. A little over a minute. No background music. No stage lights. Just him. Quiet. Thoughtful. Honest. And in that moment, fans finally understood. Because what he revealed changed how we'll see ZZ Top forever. But to understand what Billy said in that video, and why it hit fans so hard, we have to go even deeper. Because there's a chapter of ZZ Top's story that's been buried for years. A chapter about a silent promise between three men, and what happens when only one is left to keep it. The secret pact of ZZ Top. Long before ZZ Top became the world's most recognizable trio, before the Beards, before the MTV fame, before the stadium tours, there was a handshake. It happened in a small rehearsal room in Texas in the early 70s. Billy Gibbons, Dusty Hill, and Frank Beard stood in a circle. They just finished a rough jam session, sweaty and loud, and they looked at each other with that rare fire you only see when something real is being born. They weren't rock stars yet. They weren't even famous. But they all felt it, this band could be something legendary. And in that moment, they made a pact. No matter what, Dusty said, we keep it real. Just the three of us. Billy agreed. Frank nodded. That was the heart of ZZ Top. Not just the sound, but the brotherhood. The balance. The triangle that held it all together. Fans never knew about this promise. It wasn't in documentaries. It wasn't in interviews. But people felt it. That unity. That magic you can't fake. That's why ZZ Top lasted longer than almost any other rock band with the original lineup still intact. Over 50 years, no replacements, no drama. Just them. But then 2021 came. Dusty was gone. And for the first time, that triangle broke. At first, Billy tried to hold it together. He smiled on stage. He kept playing the blues. He even made jokes about Elwood Francis stepping in, how the band still had the beard, the bass, and the beat. But inside, he was torn. He remembered that pact. The three of them. No substitutes. Was continuing the band without Dusty a tribute? Or was it breaking the one thing that made ZZ Top sacred? Fans didn't see the internal struggle. Billy never showed it. Not until his 75th birthday video. In the video, Billy sat on a wooden chair. A dusty guitar leaned on the wall behind him. He looked older, not weak, but wiser. And then he said it. I've been thinking a lot about what this band means, and what it meant to Dusty. We had an agreement, the three of us. Never talked about it in public, but it was real. And now, it's just me and Frank. And I keep asking, are we still ZZ Top, or are we something else now? He paused. You could hear the wind outside. I'm not retiring. Don't get me wrong. I've still got songs to sing and stories to tell. But I've decided something big. And I want the fans, you, to be the first to know. That's where the video ended. No explanation. No detail. Just silence again. Fans were stunned. What had Billy decided? Was this the end of ZZ Top? A rebrand? A solo chapter? What came next was something no one expected, not even Frank Beard. Because Billy Gibbons wasn't done telling the truth. He was just getting started. The letter Frank never saw coming. The day after Billy posted his cryptic video, Frank Beard got a call. "Check your mail," Billy said. "I sent you something." No explanation. No warning. When Frank opened the envelope, he found a handwritten letter from Billy. Not typed. Not emailed. Written with ink, old school, like they used to do when they first started out on the road. It started with one line. "Brother, it's time." Frank sat down. Billy explained everything. How he'd been torn for years. How Dusty's death wasn't just a personal loss, it was a turning point for the soul of ZZ Top. How he couldn't sleep some nights wondering if they were still honoring the spirit of what they built, or just keeping it alive because they didn't know how to let go. And then came the bombshell. Billy had made a decision. He wanted to take a break from ZZ Top as a band, and focus instead on honoring what he called the ZZ Top spirit through something completely new. He wasn't quitting music. Far from it. He had an idea. Something bold. Something honest. A project he called the Dusty Tapes. It was a collection of unreleased recordings, song ideas, riffs, and personal moments with Dusty, stuff they'd recorded over decades but never released. Raw tapes. Imperfect. Emotional. Some were just Dusty laughing between takes. Others were haunting blues solos no one had ever heard. Billy's plan was to finish the songs with Dusty's voice, not around it. No replacements. No studio tricks. Just him, Frank, and Elwood bringing Dusty's unfinished legacy to life. He ended the letter with this line. "This isn't the end. It's the truth. And the truth is the best way we can say goodbye." Frank didn't reply for 2 days. Then he called Billy. "I read the letter," Frank said. Billy waited. "Let's do it." And just like that, the 2 remaining members of ZZ Top quietly stepped out of the spotlight, not to fade away, but to create something real again. They didn't hold a press conference. They didn't post teasers. Instead, they went underground. Into an old studio in Texas, far from the flash of social media and interviews. Just guitars, memories, and the sound of Dusty's voice coming through the speakers like a ghost in the room. But here's where the story takes another unexpected turn. Because as they were digging through the archives, they found something they had completely forgotten existed. A tape. Unlabeled. No date. Just a faint marker that read, "For the end." And what was on that tape would change everything. The hidden goodbye. Billy held the Dusty reel in his hands. The label was barely legible. "For the end," written in Dusty Hill's handwriting. No date. No context. Nothing else. Frank stared at it, confused. "You remember this?" Billy shook his head. "Not at all." They loaded the tape. A soft crackle. Then silence. Then a voice, unmistakable. It was Dusty. But he wasn't singing. He was talking. "If you're hearing this," Dusty said, "it means I'm gone. Or maybe I'm just late to the session, who knows?" They both froze. Dusty laughed on the tape. That familiar, raspy chuckle. Then he got serious. "I've been thinking. About the end. About how it'll happen for us. We always said we'd go out together. But life doesn't always let you choose the timing." A pause. "If I'm the first to go, don't stop. But don't fake it either. Don't become something we never were. You and Billy, you're the real deal. But if you keep going, do it because it means something. Not because the crowd demands it. Not because of money. Do it because the music still needs to be played." Another pause. "And if you ever find this tape, put it in the last album. Let the fans know how much they meant. Because without them, there's no ZZ Top. Just a bunch of Texas boys with guitars and too much cologne." Frank and Billy didn't say a word for 5 minutes after it ended. The studio was silent, but the air was heavy with something sacred. That tape, it wasn't just a message. It was a blessing. It was Dusty saying goodbye, but also saying go on. It changed everything. Billy scrapped half the track list for the Dusty Tapes. He started building the album around the voice recording. They added old clips of Dusty's bass lines, isolated guitar riffs they never used, and moments they thought were too raw for the public. But now, raw was the point. They weren't making a polished record. They were making a time capsule. The news eventually leaked. Fans didn't get angry. They didn't beg for another tour. They understood. In fact, they celebrated it. ZZ Top was going underground, to give Dusty the send-off he deserved. But the story doesn't end there. Because just when it seemed like this was the closing chapter, a young guitarist entered the picture. Not a replacement. Not a new member. Just a fan, who had something Billy didn't expect to hear. And what that young man revealed? would take Billy back to a place he thought he'd buried forever. The young man with the old soul. Billy was leaving the studio one late evening when he saw someone waiting near the gate. A skinny young guy, maybe in his 20s, holding a guitar case that looked older than he was. Security moved toward him, but the kid didn't run. He just stood there and said, "I think I've got something that belongs to ZZ Top." That caught Billy's attention. He motioned to let the kid speak. "My name's Jesse," he said. "My dad played blues down in Austin. Knew your crew, way back. Said Dusty gave him a tape once. Told him to hang on to it until the time was right." Billy raised an eyebrow. He'd heard a lot of wild stories over the years. Fans bringing lost recordings, demos, even claiming to have Dusty's bass or Frank's old sticks. But something about this felt different. Honest. Jesse wasn't starstruck. He wasn't trying to sell anything. He just looked like he needed to be heard. They sat in Billy's truck and listened to the tape. And then, Billy froze. It was Dusty. A grainy home recording. A rough jam session in a garage. But it was Dusty, and he was laughing. And then Dusty spoke. "This riff," he said, "ain't for a record. It's for after. If anyone finds it, and if Billy's still around, tell him, this was the one I wanted him to finish with someone new. Someone who feels it." Billy leaned back in his seat. That night, everything came rushing back. Late nights. Broken strings. Bar fights. Bus rides. And Dusty, always the loudest, always the heart of the room. The tape wasn't just music. It was a message. Dusty had planned this. He knew the band might go on without him someday. And he didn't want Billy to do it alone. He didn't want ZZ Top to be a museum. He wanted it to live. Billy looked at Jesse. This kid, who had grown up on ZZ Top without even realizing he'd been holding the key to its next chapter. And for the first time in a long while, Billy felt something warm inside. Hope. He brought Jesse inside the studio the next day. Frank raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. They handed the kid a guitar and asked him to play. He didn't shred. He didn't try to impress. He just felt the strings, the way Dusty used to. Smooth. Slow. Soulful. Frank smiled. Billy nodded. They didn't need to say it. This wasn't a new ZZ Top. This was something else. A bridge between the past and the future. A continuation, not a replacement. And as they laid the first track of the new session, with Dusty's voice in the mix, Jesse on rhythm, and Billy leading the charge, something magical happened. The spirit of ZZ Top came alive again. But Billy still had one more surprise left. Because in the vault, buried deep behind years of old tapes, was a final letter from Dusty Hill. A private one. Just for Billy. And what it said? Would bring everything full circle. Dusty's final words. Billy found the letter inside an old cigar box, one he hadn't touched in over a decade. It was stuck behind reel-to-reel tapes and tour memorabilia, backstage passes, broken guitar picks, and scribbled set lists from the 70s. He opened the lid, not even looking for anything specific. And there it was. A folded envelope, yellowed by time. The handwriting was familiar. All caps. Sharp strokes. To Billy, "Don't open till you really need it." Billy didn't move at first. Just stared. It felt like Dusty had reached through time and slapped a hand on his shoulder. He finally opened it. The letter was short. Barely a few paragraphs. But it hit harder than any blues riff ever could. "Brother. If you're reading this, then life did what it does. We always knew it could happen this way. You and me were a pair made by fate, not some record label. Two Texas boys who never cared what the world thought, as long as the groove was right. I've got no regrets. None. Not the long nights, not the missed birthdays, not even the time we almost froze in that broken-down bus outside Amarillo. We lived it all, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat. But I know you, Billy. You carry things. Guilt. Memories. Promises no one heard but you. So let me say this. You don't owe me anything. Not a statue. Not a tribute album. Just keep playing. Keep telling the truth through that guitar. And if you ever feel the fire dimming, find someone new to pass it to. The blues don't belong to us. They belong to the world. And when it's your time, I'll be waiting. Front row. Dusty. Billy folded the letter and didn't speak for a long while. He didn't cry, that wasn't his style. But something in him shifted. Like a storm cloud finally moving on. He brought the letter to the studio and laid it on the control panel. Frank read it and just nodded. That night, they recorded the final track for the Dusty tapes. The song was called Waiting Front Row. No fancy solos. Just a slow, aching blues rhythm. Billy's voice was gravelly. Worn. Honest. Jesse played a clean, soft riff under it all, subtle, respectful. And Dusty? His voice came in like a ghost. Not loud. Not center stage. Just a soft harmony near the end. One final note. When they played the full track back, no one spoke. The sound wasn't just music. It was a farewell and a beginning. Months later, when the dusty tapes dropped, fans listened in silence. No dance challenges. No viral trends. Just stories. Heart. Truth. And at the end of the record, Billy included a message. This isn't the end of ZZ Top. This is what ZZ Top was always meant to be. A brotherhood. A truth. A sound that lives on, beard or no beard. The blues didn't die. They just found a new voice. And somewhere out there, in that front row seat beyond this life, Dusty Hill was smiling.